for it to connect. All right. So Chris Bernard here, Doc29 Marketing Consulting. Got off the phone with one of our partners, yet another company kind of missing it. And I wanted to share with you some things that might actually help you as you plan to execute your initiatives in 2021 from a marketing standpoint. Even if your offline brand has now been forced to go online and try to figure out how that world works and everything like that. So a couple different things. I'm working through three things really. Overall, big picture. We're going to go over to discuss what's the goal, right? Identifying that kind of measurement in order to be a performer in 2021, know what triggers and things like that need to operate. And the third one is using what you know to do better marketing. So that being said, we get a lot of calls. And one of the things that we hear time and time again is, man, I need to do better with like Google Adwords, or I need to do social media better. I need to start email marketing, right? Those kind of things. And usually we back the truck up a little bit in terms of, all right, let's go delve into analytics, what seems to be working, what's not. We do what we call keyword insight, where we blow out a massive keyword list to find out what people are actually searching for as it relates to their product, service, their marketplace, their competitors, all that stuff. So I have a list of, thousands and thousands of keywords. These are the ones we're really going to zero in on because they have the greatest opportunity to perform for us, right? But we often get these very niche specific questions. So how should it work, right? Once you identify the specific topics that your target customer is interested in, and we do that again with proper testing with what we call keyword insight there, where we build all those keywords. We actually test them live in those marketplaces to find out which keywords are appropriate for getting traffic or potential traffic. And then we go actually do the research and say, yeah, is this a good fit for the brand, right? Is this specific keyword match? Can we sell that product or service to that individual doing that search? And then we kind of bucket that. We figure out, okay, what are the hurdles and all that stuff? What are the opportunities? What makes us, our client, different than the competition at that point? And then what we do is we craft a page, right? So these pages will go on a website, right? And those pages will have a title, they'll have, a video typically in many cases. They'll have some content elements in there. They may have a couple of different call to actions, but for all intents and purposes, we'll just make it, this one's real simple, a simple call to action, right? So we've got this page now that we're going to zero in on, is going to act as the hub for the content that we're going to now promote somewhere else, right? So this page, remember, we know who we're targeting, right? We know what keywords brought them here potentially, and we know what our goal is, our KPI, our key performance indicator, right? Because we need to measure those initiatives if we're going to start advertising it. But the net is this page is created with that guest in mind. And what that is we're going to SEO that page. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I need SEO. I need my pages to actually go ahead and rank for things on Google. So we SEO that page, search engine optimization, right? So that page is optimized, okay? That gets us hopefully some rankings in Google, okay? Now, because we've identified that guest, we know what the hurdles are. This page seems to be performing. It works good. We can then start actually, advertising it, right? So typically, we've done that PPC, that pay-per-click program on Google already, which allowed us to actually figure out which out of our dozens and dozens of products or services, what we're actually going to zero in on and package those things appropriately, those related keywords together, right? But now we're actually going to start driving PPC traffic to it, paid traffic to it, using, let's say, Google, maybe Bing, but not typically. So we've got two different things kind of coming into the funnel, right? So that's SEO and PPC. That gets us those spots on Google. If you think about Google, right, the search results page, call them SERPs, search engine results pages, you want to be at the top, okay? So in some cases, you'll see a video carousel, although you don't see them too much anymore. You'll see them right at the top, but you've got your little Google, thing right there. You've got your ads, right, typically. Some of you may actually have, some of you may actually have, depending on which search query it was, if you have a local product, you may actually have the maps, right? The streets and blah, blah, blah. You'll have the local listings in there. Okay, Google My Business in here. Okay, so you got your ads, got your map and Google My Business stuff. Then you have potentially video, right? Your YouTube videos, some of them. Okay, right? Then you also have in here, so I'm going to say YouTube. Then you actually have your organic rankings, right, for your SEO and stuff like that. Okay, here. But even with that, there's other things that you can do with that. So the company itself, the product or service, so company or the product or service. But some of you with B2Bs, right, you have a sales team, okay? So yeah, the company's website should show up or the product page should show up. But potentially you have LinkedIn opportunities, right? So LinkedIn, so potentially you could have the company right in there, but you can also have your salespeople. And you know the keywords that people are searching for in industries. You can operate your individual account members, account managers, your salespeople's profiles to potentially show up. So you can actually do quite a few things in here. But again, this allows us to, when we think about a core concept, we then start creating content that they care about, and then we're starting to drive traffic to it. So things like our Google AdWords, which would be PPC, the maps are Google My Business. Some of you have known that. Definitely want to make sure you do that. But again, I mentioned here with this video, right? Optimize your YouTube videos. Okay? When you put that video up there on YouTube, you have something called a title, which is very, very important. Make sure keywords are in there, okay? Make sure the description's well written. Make sure there's a link in there, right? So you need to be considering all of those things that allow potentially an opportunity. So when Google decides to show this video stuff as opposed to something else, you already have a YouTube video that answers the question, right? So YouTube video, your organic, which would be your SEO. You've now taken, if you're a B2B especially, right, your LinkedIn stuff and kind of manage that. Now, what about social, right? We haven't touched social yet. Well, again, since we did this on the front end here, especially with the paid media, you should be tracking and managing. If you can't figure out how many people called or clicked into that, that's a huge problem. Don't spend a dime till you get that figured out, right? So if you're going to spend $1,000 in paid media on Google, you need to be able to track it back to a performance. That gets back to that, what's the goal, right? They've done a search for, I don't know, heavy haul equipment or something of that nature. You want to make sure if you're going to pay for that term at $14 or $15 a click potentially, you need to make sure you have systems in place to know if it makes sense to continue spending money for that search term. But again, we've done the research on this. We've created this page which answers the question. We've identified what the opportunities are. We've optimized it for search. We have PPC going to it. Okay. We've done the YouTube video, so we've executed that as well with keywords. What else is there? Well, since you already know, out of, let's say this bucket of keywords for PPC is, let's say you have a couple hundred keywords in there for that specific product or service. You know which keywords are flagging in that. Make sure YouTube video is there with those keywords that we just talked about specifically in the title, by the way. And there's nothing wrong with you doing it, YouTube advertising to that, since you've done that work and you're driving people back to that page to learn more, right? Really important. But you can also now do your Facebook stuff, your Instagram, right? Instagram stuff, other business thing. You might even do LinkedIn advertising and stuff like that. But either way, it's driving everything to that page with this core content being built out. So again, we get a lot of calls saying, can we do your paid search? We need help with social media. And a lot of times, folks, it's about starting here, okay? But in order to do that, to create that great landing page, you have to know which keywords people are using and how they're getting your business. Again, the way that we do that is we take your product service and we blow out every possible keyword that we can. And we use the concentric circles there. We use many different tools to do that. But even for a small business, usually that list is like tens of thousands of key terms when we set it live. And then we run it using Adwords, the ads, right, to test it. Not only to drive traffic to it, but to test it. Now, our largest keyword list is 64 million key terms for a global rent-a-car company. Okay, on average, like a small business, let's say you have like one location, anywhere from 5,000 to 75,000 is like our average when we start doing the city components of it. Most of your keyword lists are probably going to be a couple 100,000 keywords. Most of those words will never see the light of day during our test, ever, okay? But there will be a couple hundred that do get impressions. And of that couple hundred, usually there's 25 or so to 50 that you may need to be considering. And some of those can be grouped to get a list of, let's say, 15 to 20 kind of core concept issues. Like this might be a couple keyword phrases because they're all kind of related, okay? So again, it starts out by knowing which keywords people are searching for, and then understanding how you fit into this game in terms of your value, product, and service, how you're better than why I need to making phone call, why I need to click and schedule an appointment, whatever the case may be. We need to make sure we understand that to build that page out. Okay, it all starts here. Okay, and if you haven't done that, it doesn't really matter. We just see, well, that's why I mentioned the trailer one. Companies going, advertising or spending several $1,000s a month in paid media on Google for very broad terms. Well, it's great, but they're not seeing the conversion off of it. And they're not even tracking that very well, by the way. But assuming they actually did have conversion capability on that website in a efficient fashion, it's not going to make money. Okay, so for example, lowboy trailers, right? That's great, but that's a general search term for this company. Now think about this: a truck that actually transports wind and turbine equipment. There's a whole bunch of configurations there. Traffic's not high with it. Traffic's not very high with it. But if they've done a search for a wind turbine transportation truck, take them to that page. And then I can advertise that page across other different media. Okay? So that's the big one. That's the big overall picture. It starts with content. The other one I kind of mentioned, right? Goal. It calls, emails, white paper downloads, scheduling a chat, right, for a time. All of that stuff can be actually conversion, because if you're going to spend money over here on this side, you want to know that there's a payout somewhere, right? So real simple way to do that. And some of you already know this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is not rocket science. But let's just say it's a simple calls and lead submission, right? So let's say you have a certain number of calls and you have a certain number of, let's say, emails, right, that come in off of that form. Okay, so let's say you got 10 calls. I'm making this up, right, obviously. And you got 50 emails, which happens all the time, whatever that ratio is, right? Well, you may have figured out that when you actually convert on a customer, right? Let's say that's worth $100. Let's just keep it simple, right? So that customer's worth $100. And let's say for email, it's the same thing. Let's say the average customer's $100. Again, making this up. Okay. Well, that's great, but I'm not going to convert 10 of these calls, right? So I'm actually only going to convert, let's say, 1 out of 5. Let's say I'm going to convert 2 of them. Okay. All right. So let's not do it that way. Let's do it spreadsheet way so you can kind of see it, right? So these are your actual, let's say, leads that are coming in, right? This is our average order size. Get rid of that there. Okay. So you get your leads, your average order size. So calls, emails. Average order size is this. Let's see actual customers, right? So I'm going to say, let's assume, again, we're saying it's 1/5 in this case, or 20%. So you got 2. And you can figure this out if you would use a spreadsheet. You can email me. I can share the one we use. But let's say out of the email leads, Out of those 50, let's say you get 10% of those. So let's say you got 5, right? You can see where this kind of comes in handy. Okay, well, I got 2 customers. I got 2 customers at $100. You know what that made me? So my sales, right? Real simple on this one. 200. Here, it's 500. Okay, so this total program, at least let's assume let's say we're only running AdWords in it. You should, by the way, be able to break that out, right, with your PPC spend to know which ones of these actually came in. So whether out of the 10s and the 50s, how much of it was for keyword, whatever. So you can actually manage those independent in there, right? Say, okay, well, that one specific keyword drove 80% of this revenue. Okay. So this becomes very simple then to reallocate costs. Do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And typically you can optimize these programs, right, quite a bit. So that's your big picture. That's the goal, setting goals. Some of these might be soft. It may not be sales. It might be to download the white paper, right? They download a white paper. How many of those actually end up converting as customers? If you don't have a good CRM tool, right, especially if you're a B2B, shame on you. Email marketing program, have one, real simple, right? If the customers showed interest in your brand or business, make sure you're communicating with them on a regular basis. We have a B2B out in the Northwest, and they've been in business for 30 years. Well, they never talk to their customers unless they're kind of like order takers. Well, you think you should follow up with them on a regular basis, because as they get orders, as people leave those organizations that are their clients, there's turnover there. So make sure we're doing a good job with email follow-up, have a good CRM in place, using what you know to do better marketing. So again, what I'm suggesting here, that third component, start with AdWords. Start with Google AdWords. Know which keywords are the performers, right? Because you have all these products, all these services, all these competitors, but you might have a list of, we just did this, 1,700 keywords that you just set live for a campaign, right? Well, I can tell you right now that only 7 of those words are actually going to be mattering. I can tell you that out of those top 7, the first 2 may have big impressions, but I'm not able to convert on them for whatever reason. Maybe they're too broad, maybe our product isn't aligned, whatever the case may be. But all those other 5 are really potentially, they're telling me that they're interested because their sales they're off of those specific keywords. But I know now to be able to build that into my other media channels, okay? Whether that's Facebook or YouTube videos or whatever the case may be. In fact, in that specific case, after I knew that information, after setting those campaigns live and testing them, and they actually found out which keywords were converting, the next thing I did was went over to YouTube and created a video with those 2 specific keyword phrases that were appropriate. So it's how this all kind of ties together. I hope that helps you, especially as you start thinking about your 2021. If you need help in anything that we just talked about, even just to bounce ideas off of or considerations, let me know. Give me a call. We'll talk to you later. I wish you the best.